Hi guys, my name's Hahn. I am a Master's of Recreation and Youth Development first year student, and we are doing a group discussion for ALEC 674. It's the second one.
I'm Alyssa. I'm also a first year Master's of Recreation and Youth Development major.
I'm Hayden. I am mastering in ag leadership, not mastering, certificate in ag leadership.
And I'm Jackson, and I'm also certificate in leadership.
Awesome. So this week we got to go over chapter 4 again, which talks about trends in youth development, and then also read through chapter 5. So last week we got to discuss the 8 different features that should be found in youth programs to help them run efficiently. And this week we got to read more about chapter 5. The first question that we could discuss is where youth development is as a science. So something that me and Alyssa can kind of like relate to is we're in the like intro youth development course for the master's degree. And this past week, we were just talking about how youth development in general has evolved and the ways that they study and do research, because kids basically used to be tested in labs, kind of like lab rats. Whereas now it's like, okay, researchers are going into the environment that kids are just like doing their normal day-to-day routine or different programs that they've been involved in where it's not so obviously like new and different. So I think that in general is like one thing that's changed significantly about like how we perform research.
I think one thing also is just the number of different organizations
And just the different types. There's so many different aspects that you have to study or and that need to be studied that maybe aren't fully studied yet. And I think that's, I don't know if we were saying the obstacle, but that is, that is an opportunity to advance, is just, getting more into these. I think there were the book goes over 4 different types, and
getting a little more information on each of those.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and the area of study is relatively like new and being interactive, as well as like going and actually like studying students and kids like in their environment, that a lot of different areas have not even been researched very thoroughly or yet to be researched at all. So that's kind of a little bit about like the process moving forward, is trying to get outreach and studies done in very high populated areas of study.
I think like along with the diversity in programs aspect, like I know I've known here about the collaboration among researchers themselves. So if a study is, if an area or science is new-ish, especially if the way it's being done in high collaboration among researchers, you're gonna have a better way to make sure that it's diverse and has different aspects of it. So
Yeah, absolutely. I think going along with what Jackson was talking about earlier, what obstacles do we currently have in youth development as a science, is that there are the 8 features that should collaborate together in ways to develop a youth program where it's meeting all of those key components to run well. But that oftentimes isn't able to be met. So just like we read in the chapter, if you are like building a youth program for sports, you want to see a lot of team building and different sort of interactions with those kids than you want to do with the mentorship program. And so those features are just going to look really different, or they might be non-existent, a few of them within certain youth programs.
I think something going along with that is like also like access and program quality. So there might be access to some programs for youth, but they might not be at a quality that they should be, especially like with the standards that we are growing every year. So just making sure that like there's access for a wide range of students, especially in areas that may not have a lot of resources to make a lot of different programs. So making sure that the programs that they do have are of quality and like they're able to reach a wide range of students.
right, yeah, like with the idea of reaching a wide range of students. I think the idea of not having a single program fit every group of young people and adolescents. I think realizing that diverse opportunities and different programs and different aspects of those programs are needed for a greater number of people to be helped. And I think that's a barrier that communities need to find a way to offer diverse opportunities for every single individual.
Absolutely.
And then one thing, looking at sports, I've done a little bit of work with the youth sports organization, and it kind of talks in chapter 4 about like not only physical safety, that's a huge obstacle, and then just psychological as well. Like everybody has to have an opportunity, for a sense of belonging. I think that was mentioned already, but that's just it's something that everybody needs to have in all of those youth organizations. And sports, physical, like that's just a big priority that, it has to be trained.
Absolutely. I think a big example, like to include the diversity part, just like having a lot of camp background and working with youth camps and stuff like that. I took a camp leadership class like a year ago in undergrad, and we got to visit Morgan's Wonderland, which is an all accessible youth camp in San Antonio. And so it was really cool to see like, okay, hey, any like kid from any sort of background can come and is able to do a ropes course or is able to do like high action, like impactful things, just as any other like normal functioning kid would. And so just seeing like even like the camp industry for youth is expanding in a bunch of different ways. And it's not just like kids that have disabilities that can come and like be a part of these camps as well. Cool. The next question we have is, what are some opportunities to advance the science? I think the difficulty with all of this is there are so many different youth programs in all communities, but making sure that they're all working together is huge and that they're interactive and like that families are well aware of what is offered. So I think even like the marketing factor of nonprofits is huge to make sure that access is represented.
I think a big thing with that as well is like when they're doing their data collection and like trying to see how they can use the data and what they get from the study to be able to have it be useful. Not all kids, like they're not going to be able to react the same way to different programs. They're not going to react the same way in certain environments versus other, and especially in different, like whether it be sports versus academic or something like that. Like no kid is going to react the same. So making sure that like when they take data and get the resources to promote that for future programs, that they are all encompassing. They're not just like singling out this single particular group of kids that react this singular way, because it's going to affect how it affects kids in the future for programming.
Yeah, I think one big factor is, I mean, everybody's data is always differently. It's very hard to generalize just any one human being. So when you look at the research and then the studies, you also have to look at the marketing, and you have to market it knowing that each kid will have a different upbringing and you're going to find different results around all of them. But just trying to generalize in the science to find just positive aspects for these youth programs in the future.
Cool. The next question is, how do practitioners factor into the research of youth programs? This is something that Alyssa, I've also just been learning in our youth development class right now, how you take theory and then apply it. It's not just like, okay, we're going to study it. Like, how do they effectively apply it to see the results of like what they've been researching?
I think one of the studies in chapter 5 that we read, it was talking about taking students and allowing them to be a part of the research process. So allowing them to take a leadership role in the taking of like data and like whatever studies that they were doing. And that plays into what we read in chapter 4, like letting students be a part of the youth development program and like being a part of the process and like taking charge of like their active role in society and in the different programs that they're doing. It lets them learn leadership skills and leadership development, and that kind of builds off letting students build skill instead of just being in a holding ground in after school time.
Good.
I think that's it. That's all the
No,
questions.
yes.
Or like the required ones.
Yeah, I think so.
Mhm.
Did you want to talk about the religious
Yeah, I
organization?
had
Do
I
the
had
do the religious.
something- yeah.
Yeah.
I'll just talk about that. It talks a little about like public sector institutions and then religious institutions. And I was part of a religious institution. Like growing up, I probably kindergarten through sort of about midway through high school. And one thing that they did was they included a lot of these public sector activities like dodgeball, frisbee, anything like that. And I think that's something that could help youth development organizations. It really just brought in a sense of community, you're being a little competitive with people, but also, growing with them, not just religiously, but through, I think sports are always great for helping people, but any form of activity usually works.
I know like growing up, I've been a part of, I feel like both sides of it. If we're talking about like as far as diversity and design approach, and just diversity in all aspects of the program, I know I've felt like, okay, maybe I'm in a program that is definitely more sports oriented. And if you're not a sports person, you're going to hate it and it's not going to work for you. And there's not going to be positive outcome from it. And on the flip side, if you are a sports person, you're going to a reading club, you're probably going to wish you were doing. So I think there's just, that goes back to diversity and opportunity so that kids have the ability to experience different curriculums and stuff, but also realize that sometimes they're just going to do what they want to do, and having that available to them is important. So
I completely agree. And I feel like that also for sure affects the research of how researchers are able to view, oh, okay, is this kid interactive? Is this program even effective for this type of youth? So that definitely makes sense. Cool.
beautiful.
Anything else?
Everybody has.
Perfect. I
Cool.
will stop the recording.